Hello and welcome everybody to episode 11 of our sphere painting. Now, I'm very happy to have you here. How many people in the chat, let me know, are surprised that we've been working about an hour every day and we're on day 11 and we're still working on our sphere painting? Some people are really surprised sometimes by how long uh, projects will take in an atelier when they are done the right way. And we still have a lot of work to do. We still need to finish covering our first pass of the sphere, and we also need to do our second pass of the sphere. So we have many more hours together, I hope. I hope you'll continue to join me here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mandy Tice. I am director of the School of Atelier Arts. I'm an atelier trained instructor. Atelier is just a fancy way of saying I'm trained to draw and paint realistically. And I love teaching other people how to draw and paint realistically. So I'm really happy you're here. Please say hello in the chat. And we will kind of hop into it. Just a little bit of a review of what we've been doing. So we have our sphere here. Excuse me. We drew the sphere, we drew the divisions between the back plane, ground plane, front plane. We found the division between shadow of light on the sphere. And now we are tiling from the shadow side through the center of the sphere and towards the other side. We do this because we're always trying to paint across the form, right? We don't want to go in little circles like this. That's going to kill the form. We'll talk about more of that in a minute. And we don't want to smudge it this way. We don't want to do this. No windshield wiper motions. What we do want is to be methodical and thoughtful about every area of our canvas and what the exact value is there. And good morning, Leola. So good to see you this morning. Okay, so I am seeing a message. I'm just going to highlight this here. Oh, that's the good morning. I wanted to highlight your other. Okay. So something's funny is happening on the text side here, Leola, where I can't see the second half of your message. So if you try again, I'd appreciate it. And Edie, welcome back. So happy to have you here. Hey. And Ellen, good morning from Pennsylvania, Miss Ellen. So happy to see everybody. Happy Monday. And we get to start our week out with art and painting. Like, what a joy. What a joyful time we get, the way we get to start the week. Okay, so why don't we do the starting part? So it is Monday. I have a new palette. I need to take a couple minutes to mix up my piles. Good morning, McGree. Good to see you. And yeah, we'll get into it. I always find mixing up my strings, so I had to clean off my palette. I didn't do a great job, clearly, but I have my black and my white. Let me put it this way because I'm doing a terrible job of showing you the other way, right? I always try to arrange my palette from light to dark. So even when I'm painting in full color, it's going to be my white, my yellow, my red, my blue, right? Just having a system for your palette every time makes things easier. If you always put your paint in the same place on your palette, then that's less thinking and pain for you in your brain when you're trying to do other things and think about other things. Okay, so again, when you're mixing your strings, start with the halfway point, right? Don't try. A lot of students will start with the dark side and then just get a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. And they have like 7 or 8 values mixed and they're this dark still, right? So by mixing that visual halfway and then the halfway between the halfway points, it helps us make sure that we get even jumps of change, which is what we want. Okay, so I'm just going to mix what I hope will be a halfway value. And I'm going to try to do this quickly. If you want more information on how to mix grisaille strings, we have a whole video on it. I believe it was day 2 of our of these lessons. So I encourage you to check that out. All right, now I'm going to mix the halfway between the halfway. So I'm trying to find my value 3 here. And I see lots of friends in the chat. I love that we have a little community that knows each other or getting to know each other at any rate. Okay, so then so I have my halfway between my 1 and my 5. Now I'm going to do my halfway between my 5 and my 9. I like that's still a touch dark. Remember that we want it to be the visual halfway between our 5 and our 9. So we can't just mix some of our 5, equal parts of our 5 and 9 together and get the visual halfway. Okay, so I have my 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and now of course I need to mix the ones in between. And good morning, Peter. Welcome back. Leola, Ellen, I think I got everybody. If I missed you, say hello again in the chat because I don't want to miss anybody. I'm so excited that other people want to get up and paint on a Monday morning with me. It's quite wonderful. Okay. So I'm just trying to get these down so that we can get going. And that one wasn't mixed super well. That's a little bit dark. Sometimes if you get too much paint in a pile, just put it to the side and start mixing a new pile. You can always use it later and mix it into a different color. That's still feeling dark. Is it dark or is it just my... All right, that's still feeling dark. I'm gonna put it in my reject pile over here, take just a little bit and lighten it one step more. Of course, now I over-exaggerate it. See, I was trying to be in a hurry. I was like, let's just get these mixed so that we can carry on. And because I was in a hurry, I am having a few false starts here. So now the side pile, I'm going to mix with the pile that I had, and we'll see if that gives us what we wanted. Voila. Okay, and then I need one lighter one here. I'm going to get a new place. I don't want it to pick up all that dark on my pile. Your value too just is like pure white with the tiniest bit of value in it. It's like when you're mixing it alone, it feels almost white. Okay, so we have our string here. Yay. So a brief reminder of what we did in lesson 2. Hey, Carol, welcome. And Corrine, welcome. It's so good to see you. So Corinne's saying she did value scale with 2nd and 4th graders today and was reminded of these sessions. Indeed. And, I'm really glad that you're doing it with 2nd and 4th graders. I've really found that in 2nd grade is when I can really start teaching a lot of, atelier drawing and painting principles. I don't understand why many of the art textbooks for our teachers say, we can't do shading until high school or something silly like that. In my experience, second graders are perfectly capable of understanding a value scale and, applying it to a sphere at some degree of success. Um, uh, okay, so Carol's following up. We have multiple Carols. Hello, Carol B. So following up from Friday, the question about water-based oils and conservation, the answer to why conservators object to these water-based oils is that the first step in restoration is use water. Okay. So that there might be a conflict with how the pigment behaves with conservation issues for cleaning the canvas. So that's something to think about. Some painters really worry about the long-term life of their paintings. Of course, we all want our paintings to last forever. But to what degree are you willing to trade off? There's some painters like Turner, he was notoriously awful to his paintings. Like he would have them like rotting in the corner of his studio, like literally molding, right? Because as soon as he was done painting it, he had no interest in it anymore. And he would use paints that he knew were fugitive, that wouldn't stick. Like rose madder in particular was a fugitive pigment, but he loved it so much, so he kept using it. And now we don't really know what color some of his paintings were supposed to be, because we're like, is this a sunset or like a daytime painting? Because as the red matter, the rose madder, the color disappeared, then it changed the whole scene, right? So there's all sorts of ways to work. I don't think that we dislike Turner any more than had he used more conservational practices, but surely the conservationists would have loved him more. Oh, thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Carol says, maybe we'll have self-cleaning art in 100 years. Perhaps. I love it. Okay, so we're not doing anything too different other than continuing our way around here. Now, something to really know about, I'm seeing in the chat that Leela wants me to answer Peter's question, and I missed Peter's question. Oh, Peter is saying, how would you, here, look, I just learned I can highlight these. Peter's asking, how would you tile a picture or a vase? That's always been confusing for me. Yes. Okay, so the good news is once you do a sphere, a vase is nothing, or a cup. I don't have a very good example within arm's reach, but let me try this. Okay, so the local color here is a gray, so we're not getting quite as much form, but we still have a highlight, right? And it's still getting darker as it wraps around the form. And if you think about it, this cup is kind of like a sphere with a cylinder sticking out on top, right? So if you think about it that way, you can paint this almost exactly like a sphere, right? It's turning in all directions, just like we're painting here. And then when it transitions into a cylinder, that's a different kind of light theory that maybe we'll paint the cylinder next. But it's still the basic idea of the light hits here and it gets darker as it wraps in both directions. And there's a core shadow that you can see right here as well. And that core shadow does the sphere thing too. So this cup is not a cup, it's a sphere with a cylinder on top. I hope that helps answer your question, Peter. We can definitely get into other still life objects, perhaps in another online class here. Okay, I'm going to hide that. Thank you. Oh, look, I just highlighted a comment. I'm feeling so proud of myself. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do here, and this is important, as we're working down here, remember that this part of the sphere is receiving different amount of light than this part, right? A lot of times when students get to this stage of the painting, they start doing the smearing thing, right? But what happens is that if you smear this together, you're saying that this is the same color as this as that, and it's not. You can see even on our tiles that it's darker down here and a little bit lighter because this part of the sphere is closer to the light source. And this part of the sphere is getting further away from the light source, so it's getting darker again. If I were to just smear all that together, then you're saying that this part of the sphere is just as close to the light source as this part, and that's not true. That's a lie. So especially when we're working today, this shadow, we said that this core shadow kind of dissipates because there's all this bouncing light from the light side, and that's true. but it doesn't dissipate in a skinny way. It dissipates in a big way that makes the overall vibe feel like the darks are extending up and around here a little bit more. So, this shadow is dissipating over a pretty wide edge in here. So as I work in this area today, I want to be mindful of two things. One is that we don't want to lose the edge of our sphere. And two is that this core shadow is dissipating. It's going to get lighter because of the bouncing light, but the edge is going to get wider. It's going to be a really soft edge there. And we're going to continue working across the form. So, I'm going to be going this way and then this way, and we'll be filling up both the top and bottom because we're going through the highlight. Okay. So I have my palette, I have my brushes. If Jolene's here today, she's one of the students in the boot camp, and she, I believe it was her who told me to put the brushes in oil, and then you don't have to wash them anymore. And this is my first week doing it, and I love it. Like, if there's one thing you should know about me is that I hate washing brushes. That's why all my brushes are like on the verge of collapse and not being so great. And just sticking them in a little bit of linseed oil overnight, and just like wipe them off and put them in the linseed oil, it has treated my brushes so much better than even when I wash them. So I'm a big fan of this solution. So I think it was Jolene. If you're here, thank you, lady. Appreciate you. All right. I'm going to go. I'm getting my small brush because we're going to start on this edge here. And, it looks like, remember, it's getting lighter. So I think maybe a 7. I'm just going to test my painting, and it feels pretty dry here, which is nice because I can use this to support, my pinky without making a mess. Is my head in the way, or you guys can see? I mean, if I rotate it this, I bet you'll see better. That's a touch dark. Remember, it's getting lighter. So I'm lightening it a little bit because the shadow dissipates. Remember, I'm working across the form here. That doesn't feel much lighter. We just want to get our first pass in here. Again, going from dark to light, the form turns faster as it gets to the edge, and it turns slower as it approaches. So we're actually going to spend more time in the light couple values than we are when we go from such a dark to such a light. Okay. That might have been too big of a jump. But maybe not. It's hard to tell. Sometimes, just stick on your path from dark to light, spending more time in the lights. And sometimes you'll figure out. Now, I realized I'm using my little brush, whereas before I was using my big brush. So I'm going to switch to my big brush because I want to be consistent. It can really mess you up if you do this much of it with one brush size and then switch to a smaller brush size, because your rate of change is going to be different just based on the size of the brush that you're using. And it makes sense that this tile is lighter than this tile because this is closer to our light source than this, right? So remember that form turns in all directions. And that's why we can't go smearing it about, as every tile is getting its own unique amount of light. Okay. Now, this feels really, really light because I'm kind of overlaying a second pass on the lightest part of our sphere here, and I'm going to use a pure white now. And when you layer white, it's going to feel brighter. Okay, so now we've gotten the lightest part of our sphere to be one step lighter than it was before because we were able to layer on top as I hit that center. So it matters the amount of light, the size of the light that you put down. It matters how thickly you lay the paint down, and it matters how pure the white is. Sometimes people will get a completely clean brush to put the white down. Okay, so continuing to work across the sphere, I'm getting close to just having such a small space. I'm gonna, do this strip. So we continued across here. I'm gonna continue across into this other side. Um, so I hit my lightest light. I'm going down one value, a tiny value. Going down one more. And now the rate of change is starting to pick up again, right? So we spend a lot of time in the very, very lightest bit, and now it's going to change somewhat quickly. Oh, that was too big of a jump. Not quite that quickly. But it is, the rate of change is going to change in a way where we're going to have to get from this pretty light value all the way to a dark and not very many tiles. So Ellen has a great question in the chat. So she's saying, so guessing you could do a portrait this way, but would be torture with color, form, value changes. Actually, I encourage you to do a master copy of a portrait using the tiling, because when you have to think about value, chroma, and hue for every single tile, it really refines your ability to see color. It's wonderful, wonderful practice. So right now we're doing it just with value changes, right? We don't have to worry about hue, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and we don't have to worry about chroma. If you want to learn more about value, chroma, hue, I have a lot of color theory videos on the School of Atelier Arts channel. I encourage you to check them out. A lot of them are just shorter videos like what is chroma, what is hue, but it'll help you understand how one is affected by the other. So when you're painting in full color, for every tile, instead of just asking, is it lighter or darker, you have to ask yourself, what's the value, how light or dark it is, what's the chroma, how intense is the color, and what's the hue, is it red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple? And so it can take you 3 times longer per tile when you go through this thought process, but by the time you finish tiling your master copy, you'll have a really firm grasp on form and color and how those two things intersect. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, and Ellen, that's actually the first project I have you do. For anybody that's interested in our online painting boot camp, it's the first project I have students do, no matter how much experience they have, is a master copy because it allows me to see what they know and it allows them to kind of learn from another painter. And we have a full process with videos. You know how I teach, right? So I go through the whole process from very, very beginning stages on teaching you how to deal with value chroma hue and deal with tiling, dealing with painting with all of those considerations. But the advantage of doing a master copy first is that you're not also having to deal with drawing at the same time, which is what happens when you're painting a portrait from life. So if that's something you're interested in, I encourage you to sign up for our boot camp. Okay, so just continuing along here. And the change is going to become more rapid now, more quickly. Oh, do you see how that was just too much of a change too fast? So the key here is not to panic. You need to go a little bit lighter than you want it to be because it's going to pick up that color underneath. Um, just be methodical. Okay, I'm switching my little brush because we're approaching that edge and, I have to get fairly dark fairly fast here. Oh, and that was too light. Okay, and approaching this edge. Again, being very careful not to lose my drawing. And also to cover the canvas, you don't want white of the canvas showing through. So you have to find the right balance between how much paint is on your paintbrush and how carefully you can control that edge. I just put a way too dark note down. Okay. I'm just trying to find a value in between these two here. All right. All right, now I'm tempted so bad right now. I want to go whoop, 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 just do those things that I told you not to do. But I'm going to stay disciplined and get this first pass in. Oh, so Peter's saying that he's going to paint over still life he did 6 months ago, but now using tiling. That's a great idea. It's a great way, especially when you did an underpainting with one method, to be able to see a contrast using a different method of what it can and cannot do for you. But if you ever have a great area with form, tiling is wonderful for making things look really, really round, right? Because it's really the nuance of what's happening in the light that makes something look really round. So Peter's asking, are you saving the dark side of the core shadow for later? This will get another pass, and we're gonna disappear some of these edges in here on the second pass, but I'm not worried about the core shadow right now. Until this gets covered, the only thing that matters is tiling in the light. Try not to jump around, right, to other parts of your painting. That's part of the discipline. And then when we get to our second pass, we'll start cleaning up the shadow area, unifying it a little bit more, really building up our lights on the light side in the second pass, etc. Okay. So I'm going to focus on working today because I really want to get this covered today. I think we've all had enough understanding of how the tiling works. So I just want to get it covered so that we can go on to a second pass in the near future here. So again, I'm going to start from down here and work across and go from there. Using my small brush because once again, I'm teetering on this edge over here. It's a little too dark. Remember that even on this edge, the shadow's getting lighter and lighter because more and more bouncing light's getting in here. Okay, and then switching back to my larger brush. And this whole pass has to be a little bit lighter than the pass that was before it. Because it's a little bit closer to the light source. That did not get lighter. Remember that you have to hit it lighter than you think it is to make a correction. All right, that's an overcorrection. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's okay. It just looked really light. Remember, by having each tile be its own value, that's what's creating the illusion of it being, that was way too light, being round, right? As soon as you start making 5 tiles all one value, you lose the illusion of form. I need one in between those two. Can't quite get this one tile. There we go. What I want it to be. Okay, don't be frustrated. Well, you can be as frustrated as you want. It can be frustrating when you put a tile out of order and getting back on track. You just have to not panic. No panicking, right? Just be methodical. Does it need to be lighter or darker? How are you going to get it lighter or darker? Remember that you have to overshoot light or dark in order for the final tile to be the right color because it's going to pick up what's underneath it. And we're approaching the light. Sometimes when you get close, it's hard to tell the difference now that we're getting more of the canvas covered, of what's canvas and what's your buildup of light. But we now no longer have any canvas showing in the middle of our sphere. Okay, because we only have a tiny bit left, I'm just going to fill in the last little bit here. It's a little light. So I'm basically trying to bridge this side to this side. So I started too light, now I'm too dark. It's because, oh, see, I'm rushing and I'm doing silly things. So I got some paint on my palette where I didn't want it and got some black in there. So this is going to take a little time to fix. There's different ways to go about fixing it. You could take your palette knife and just scrape off the tile. I like to just kind of mix a little bit on the page until it becomes the color I need it to be. But be careful. Try to keep it contained. It's really easy to start mixing it on here. Then the next thing you know, you're doing the wiper thing and losing all those individualized tiles that you worked so hard for. Okay. So trying to continue darkening a little bit at a time, which I'm not doing a good job of. Come on, Mandy, get your act together this morning. And of course, as we approach the outer edge, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm just going to fill in this piece here. It's a little light. Okay, definitely time to switch to the smaller brush. And again, it gets a little bit darker as it goes across. So I can't just take one color on my small brush. I need to be darkening it as I go across. Okay, so we have something there. I just wanted to darken this side a touch. Mm. Okay, I'm not going to fuss too much, but we have some coverage up here. There is a little bit of a white bit from this messing around I did that I'm just trying to put an in-between color on because it got too light in this one section. Okay, I'm going to leave that be. It's so easy to start over fussing on your sphere. Now it's looking like this is a lighter stripe than what's next to it. So what I can do as I continue working here is I'll work across the center and just a little bit further to knit, this area so it doesn't look like there's this white stripe going through there. I see a lot of questions in the chat. I've been neglecting the chat. When using a hue, say orange, do you simply add white or black to change the value, or would you add the complement, blue in this case, to be darker? Oh, this is a great question. This is really, we're painting in Grisaille today, so this is really a color theory question in tiling. I go through this extensively in the online painting boot camp, but the reality is that you have to look at the value, chroma, and hue of every note that you put down. So if you have a blue and you add black, you have an orange and you add black to it. Black is not a color. Black is actually a dark value neutralized blue. So if you are using orange as your example and you add black, you actually are adding a blue to your black. It's just a neutralized dark value blue. That being said, people think of wood, right? Like there's wood behind me. It's a neutralized orange. What's behind me is a light neutralized orange. The boxes here that I'm using are medium value neutralized orange. but brown is not in the color wheel. It's not red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown, right? Brown is orange. That's the hue that's been neutralized. That's talking about the chroma. And it's value, right? How light or dark it is. So all of those things matter when you're mixing a color. Definitely in the boot camp, we go like there's hours of lessons on this. So if you're curious about that, please consider joining us in the boot camp. And there's also we have some color theory worksheets on our website as well that go through that process with you. So there's 50 worksheets, and they take you through like the very beginning ideas of color all the way through to finding the value, chroma, hue of very specific and nuanced colors. So if you're looking for some color practice, those worksheets might be a good choice for you as well. And you can find them at schoolofatelierarts.com under our Atelier curriculum. Good questions. Okay, I am going to just continue working the way we have been. I don't really have new information for you at this point. It's just a matter of doing it. Keep in mind that we're now thoroughly on the light side. So, our darkest value at this point still has to be on the light side of the war with light and shadow. In this case, like a 5.5. Oh, you know what? I'm using my big brush on this edge and I messed it up a little bit. So I'm going to go to my little brush, push in from this dark side a touch, because I barely lost my edge there, and you do not want to lose your edge. I can tell I don't have my best thinking on today, right? I'm making a lot of mistakes. Maybe it's Monday, pianists say that if you don't practice, like every day that you don't practice, like the slower your hand gets, right? So maybe because I took 2 days off, my thinking is not super sharp today. All right, that's not light enough. Sometimes you get a buildup of paint on the edge, and I don't want that, so I'm knocking that edge down. And again, this part's closer than my other part, so it needs to be a little bit brighter, a little bit sooner. And then, of course, we're approaching our center here. Now, I'm going to take this a little bit across because I feel like this part got just a touch dark. And because it's dry underneath and because I already have these tiles mixed, I can transition to the other side a touch. Normally, I don't go back and make any adjustments until the whole thing is covered, but since this is on the pass, it can be an exception. Okay, I'll just knit it together with what's there. That was a little dark. Oh, why did I put that note down? No, Mandy, think better today, Mandy. All right, so I made it too light. Now it's too dark. Let's see if I can find the happy. It's really tempting to start smearing in here, right? But stay disciplined, keep to your tiles. You'll figure it out. So I keep going too light and too dark. But every time I go too light or too dark, I get a little bit closer to what I need. I'm like really going on a wild sidetrack here. I need to stop because I'm not doing my best thinking. Once you get so far, you'd be better off starting in the shadow, coming back into your light. But overall, it's this one tile here. All right, I'm starting to do second pass stuff here, and that's not what we're doing. We need to finish the first pass. All right, so try not to get sucked in like I just did. I'm going to continue. I'm just going to fill in this triangle here, and then we're going to call it good for today. Um, Again, starting with my smaller brush. So we're dealing with the edge. Oh, thanks, Ellen. Yes, I do hope that all of you will like and subscribe to this channel. I try to, provide as much quality education I can for all you art teachers out there, for all you people looking to learn atelier skills. Atelier training is really hard to come by. There aren't that many people in the world that have this training, and even the people that have it, many of them don't teach. It can be really difficult to find access to this information. So thank you for your support and helping me provide broad access to this knowledge to the universe via streaming. Oh, too dark. Right. If I wasn't giving a demo, I'm making so many mistakes today that if I wasn't giving a demo, I might have stopped by now and worked on a different project. Sometimes you just get in a bad headspace, but we're going to power through. Okay, and then back to my edge. It looks like I barely overstepped my edge. So with my small brush, I want to push in from the other side. Um, This edge especially, we want to be really careful about. I keep trapping myself jumping to different strings. Don't do that. Do what I say, not as I do. Classic teacher. Just really bothered me how dark that one moment was. Okay, and then just filling in this last little bit, and then we'll have our first pass. Okay. Okay, we have managed to cover this. This one tile here is really bothering me because it's going from light to dark pretty quickly there. So I'm going to adjust this one tile. And see, I did it with a messy brush because I was in a hurry and I wanted to jump around. I hope the lesson you're learning today is patience matters, and that even when you're really experienced, if you're being impatient or feeling rushed or in a hurry, you're going to make more mistakes than if you can be in your calm, happy place. Okay, so this is fine for now. I definitely see places on the second pass that I want to adjust. Like this is feeling really too dark right here. This edge needs wider, especially the core shadow edge. And this whole shadow area needs a lot of work. Like this dark, I feel like now that we have it covered, this is too light in our reflected light. We did say it was a white sphere and a white background, but I feel like it's exaggerated just a little bit here. So we have plenty to adjust in our next pass, but hopefully what we have achieved so far is starting the feeling of the form of the sphere. And as we do the second pass, we have so much better information to go by because we're not having to go from a white canvas. We're going from our first ideas of what the values are. Um, and Karine saying, thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm excited to join your atelier soonish. We're excited to have you soonish. I do encourage all of you, I know it's always like something that you can put off, right? Like, oh, next month I'll do it. Oh, next week I'll do it. Oh, but it's like anything, right? You just have to start somewhere sometime. In the habits books that are becoming more popular, they say if you want to make a yoga routine to just touch your toes in the morning, right? Like, and that's so small. How could you not just touch your toes in the morning? And then it grows from there, right? But the same thing happens when you're in an online class. You're all here today because you knew that I was going to stream at 9 a.m. and you're thinking and doing art, right? And the online atelier is just another nudge for you to meet multiple times a week. And then, oh, you're going to feel like you want to show something to have a critique on, right? It's all these little nudges that actually help you not just learn, but maintain and develop a disciplined painting practice. So I hope to see all of you in our online class at some point. Meanwhile, we'll continue working on our sphere until it is complete. We are streaming at 9 a.m. Eastern time until the completion of this project. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Thank you, Mino. Excellent. So lovely working with all of you today. Take care.